In the spring of 1570, a rider was ambushed along a quiet dirt road in Fife. He was carrying secrets so volatile they had already helped force the abdication of Mary, Queen of Scots. The victim, John Wode, was killed by a gunshot, a method so rare at the time that his death, alongside his boss's murder just months prior, stands as one of the first two recorded firearm assassinations in history. John Wode's death illustrated the price of the family's shifting ambitions. By moving away from the open sea and into the inner circle of royal power, the clan had traded the risks of naval combat for the far more personal dangers of political espionage. When you hear the word clan, you likely picture rebels draped in tartan fighting over mountain passes. The Wode family operated differently, building their power in the wealthy, bustling civic hubs of the Scottish Lowlands, like the port of Leith. Instead of stealing cattle, they functioned like a medieval private military company. They wielded legally verified authority, building influence in the courtrooms and on the trade routes rather than through Highland raids. This diagram shows the 4 linguistic tracks that merged into the Clan Wode identity. 2 are fairly standard: the topographic route, referring to forest dwellers, and the Anglo-Norman route, introduced by court bureaucrats from France. A 3rd track came from the Gaelic translation for wood on the western seaboard. But the most revealing origin is the 4th, the Anglo-Saxon word Wode, which traces directly back to the ancient Germanic storm god, Odin. In a militarized society, Wode was a high compliment. It described a warrior who became a wild or frenzied force in battle, which is why the earliest Wode family crests featured a naked savage carrying a heavy club. Their name was a warning label. It described a highly organized dynasty built on a foundation of authorized martial aggression. In the 15th century, Scotland didn't have a standing navy. When the king needed to secure the coasts, he contracted successful merchants who already owned heavily armed private vessels. Sir Andrew Wode turned this military gig economy into a personal empire. By 1489, Sir Andrew had proven his tactical brilliance at the Battle of Dunbar, where his 2 personal ships engaged and captured 5 English vessels that had been plundering the Clyde. To stop him, the English sent a veteran commander named Stephen Bull to lay an ambush behind the Isle of May. Catching the Scottish ships off guard, Bull expected a quick surrender. Instead, Wode immediately drove his ships straight into the English line. Wode's crews threw out grappling hooks, lashing the warring ships together. What followed was a brutal 2-day hand-to-hand struggle. Unable to maneuver, the interlocked wooden fortresses drifted aimlessly with the tide as the crews fought deck to deck. Eventually, the tide dragged the battered ships into the mouth of the River Tay, where Wode's superior seamanship finally broke the English forces. He captured the entire fleet and presented the surviving prisoners to the Scottish king. This victory secured Scotland's coastal sovereignty and established the Wodes as the king's primary naval strike force, an evolution of their origins as private shipowners. Proximity to the monarch brought immense power, but it also forced the family off the relative safety of their ships and into the treacherous environment of the royal court. Decades after those naval victories, John Wode of Tully Davy operated as the secretary to the Regent of Scotland during the violently unstable Marian Civil War. John was entrusted with the Casket Letters, the explosive documents used to legally indict Mary, Queen of Scots, for the murder of her husband. By organizing and transporting the evidence that ruined a queen, John Wode made himself a primary target for her loyalists, leading directly to the ambush in Fife. Stepping off the deck of a warship and into the royal throne room brought John Wode into the crosshairs of the state's most lethal enemies. The clan's eventual downfall came from an unexpected direction: the mounting debts of the Scottish crown. While they had survived enemy fleets and assassins, they could not survive the financial demands of the kings they served. In the late 16th century, Andrew Wode of Largo served as the Comptroller of Scotland. Essentially acting as a CFO for a failing state, Andrew paid the royal household's mounting expenses directly out of his own pocket. This chart shows the scale of the resulting financial collapse. Andrew accumulated a personal debt of over £7,000 Scots, the equivalent of tens of millions today. The crown absorbed his wealth but never fully repaid him. In 1661, James Wode of Grange suffered a similar fate. After raising a troop of horses for King Charles I, He was forced by Parliament to personally bear the astronomical costs of that royal military service. These debts forced the family to begin a painful fire sale of their ancestral estates to satisfy the creditors of the monarchs they had protected. The Wodes survived pirates and English armadas, only to be systematically dismantled by the bureaucratic ingratitude of their own kings. Today, if you visit Largo Bay, you won't find the grand castle built by the admiral. Almost all of it was demolished. The only structure left standing is a single stone tower keeping watch over the water. It stands as a solitary monument to a dynasty that once influenced the fate of the Scottish crown, only to be hollowed out by the costs of that very service. The history of Clan Wode is a reminder that in the struggle for royal favor, loyalty carries a cost that a family's treasury and its bloodline must eventually pay.